If you grew up watching football in the 90s, this team wasn't just a club, it was a cultural obsession. They had the coolest kits, the biggest hair, and the greatest collection of young superstars the world has ever seen. They were destined to rule Europe for decades. This was the era when Serie A was the NBA of football, and Parma, they were the rebels crashing the party, a small provincial team challenging the giants of Milan and Turin, playing with a swagger that captivated an entire generation. But what if I told you that this entire golden era was a lie? This isn't just a story about a football team losing a few games. This is the story of how Europe's biggest financial crime ring used a football club as a mask. A disaster so repetitive it happened not once, but twice. It involves forged bank documents, billionaires disappearing into the night, and a locker room so broke they couldn't even afford hot water for the showers. How does a team go from lifting European trophies to being sold for the price of a morning coffee? To understand the tragedy, we have to understand the architect. In the early 90s, Parma was a quiet provincial town, but then came Callisto Tanzi. He was the owner of Parmalat, a global dairy giant. Tanzi wanted glory. He didn't just want a football team, he wanted a billboard for his empire. He saw football as the ultimate marketing tool to put his milk cartons on kitchen tables across the globe. Therefore, he turned the tap on. He didn't just buy players, he bought future legends. The logic was simple. Parmalat is rich, thus Parma is rich. And it worked. They won the UEFA Cup, the Coppa Italia, the Super Cup. They were the Seven Sisters challenger that everyone loved. They were unplayable. You had Zola's magic, Asprilla's chaos, and a young Gigi Buffon in goal. For a decade, they were the second best team in Italy, accumulating trophies while spending money like there was no tomorrow. Right now, this looks like the perfect football fairy tale. A rich local owner making dreams come true. But ask yourself, where exactly was all this cash coming from? It turns out Parmalat wasn't a business empire. It was a Ponzi scheme. But nobody knew it yet. The club was spending money that didn't exist. To keep the illusion alive, they were literally photocopying bank statements. They forged a document from Bank of America showing $4 billion that simply wasn't there. It was monopoly money, used to buy real-world superstars. In 2003, the lie exploded. Auditors discovered a black hole in Parmalat's accounts worth 14 billion euros. The company collapsed overnight. The football club was considered a corporate asset. Therefore, the state seized it. The players stopped getting paid. The heart of the team had already been ripped out years ago. In 2001 and 2002, the club was forced to sell its greatest legends, Buffon, Thuram, and Cannavaro, to fuel the Ponzi scheme and keep the unsustainable spending going. The aftermath was a desperate fire sale. Watching Buffon go to Juventus in 2001 wasn't just a transfer, it was a surrender to financial necessity. The fans watched helplessly as their remaining idols were auctioned off in a last-ditch attempt to mitigate the damage from Tanzi's crimes. The club should have died right there, but the remaining players refused to quit. They played for pride. They somehow finished 5th in Serie A despite the chaos. Because of this miracle survival, the club was allowed to reform as Parma FC under special administration. They had survived the biggest fraud in European history. You'd think, after surviving a nuclear winter like that, the club would be safe. You'd think the authorities would ensure the new owners were squeaky clean. But you'd be wrong. Enter Tommaso Gherardi, a wealthy entrepreneur who bought the club out of administration. Fans breathed a sigh of relief. For a few years, things looked normal. They even qualified for the Europa League in 2014. It felt like the nightmare was finally over. They celebrated their centenary. They had Antonio Cassano creating magic on the pitch. They earned their spot in Europe on merit. But then, the UEFA license was denied. Why? Because Gherardi hadn't paid the taxes on the players' salaries. The House of Cards was back. Gherardi wanted out. Therefore, he sold the club. And this is where the story goes from tragedy to farce. The club was passed around like a hot potato, eventually landing in the hands of a man named Gianpietro Manenti. Nobody knew who this guy was. He showed up in a beat-up car, promising huge investment from mysterious foreign backers. It was sketchy from day one. He bought the club for €1, but he promised he had millions in the bank ready to transfer. The situation got so bad that the club couldn't afford bottled water for training. The players had to wash their own kits at home. Games were cancelled because they couldn't pay the stewards or the electricity bill. The youth team was taking cold showers in the dark. It was total humiliation for one of Italy's most historic names. They had to auction off the furniture. They even sold the trophies Tanzi bought in the 90s. As a result, in March 2015, Parma was declared bankrupt. Again. The club was dissolved. They had to restart in Serie D, the amateur leagues, non-professional football. Imagine going from the San Siro to playing on muddy pitches against village teams. Most clubs disappear here. They fade into obscurity. But look at the stands. 9,000 season tickets sold. In the amateur league, the money was gone, the trophies were sold, the stars were memories. but the fans remained. And it wasn't just the fans. Look at Alessandro Lucarelli, the captain. He could have left for a Serie A contract. Instead, he stayed. He promised to bring them back. He said, "I died with Parma, and I want to be reborn with Parma." And because the fans stayed, the team fought. They became the first club in Italian history to achieve 3 back-to-back promotions, from the hell of bankruptcy back to the heaven of Serie A. Parma is a lesson to the world of football. Owners lie, money disappears, trophies can be auctioned off, but as long as the people in the stands show up, a football club can never truly die. Parma survived because of their fans, but there is another Italian giant that wasn't so lucky. A team that disappeared entirely. If you want to learn what happened to them, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next video. And now, click the video appearing on your screen to uncover the hidden secrets and untold mysteries of the South Korean national team.